One of the scriptures that pseudo-Christian organizations use to try to teach against the divinity of Christ, that he's not God, is they like to use Proverbs chapter 8, verse 22, where Solomon writes, "The Lord brought me," speaking of wisdom, "he brought me forth as the first of his works before his deeds of old. I was formed long ago at the very beginning when the world came to be." And so what pseudo-religious groups will do, like Jehovah's Witness, Mormons, and other Christian organizations that don't believe that Jesus is God, they'll say, you see, Jesus is the wisdom of God. Isn't that right? And we would agree, yes, Jesus is the wisdom of God. That's what 1 Corinthians says. So they'll say, you see, wisdom was created, and therefore Jesus had to be created. Okay, stop, time out. See, this is where people become illogical. Stop for a moment. I'm going to ask you a question. How long has wisdom existed? Come on, tell me, how long has wisdom existed? It better be eternal, because God himself is the all true wise God. Do you not agree that God is always wise? Has there been a time when God's been foolish and then he decided, poof, to create wisdom so he could be wise? No, 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 no. That's silly, isn't it? God's always been wise. So how long has wisdom existed? It's existed as long as God's existed, and that's eternity. Do you see? What Solomon is pointing out is something that maybe his readers didn't grasp, is that wisdom has always been available to you at all times, because God himself is all wise. So the first thing that the universe contains is the wisdom of God. And this is what Solomon is pointing out, is that it's the first of the works. So when we look at wisdom, we look at it as a work of God, yet at the same time, it's part of who God's nature is. And since he's always been wise, it's an eternal quality of God. In fact, he actually says something in verse 22. It was formed long ages ago at the very beginning when the world came to be. You notice what he's saying? Wisdom existed at the beginning before the world came to be. Now think about it. Before there was a universe, wisdom existed. Why? Because God exists. See, he is the beginning. And this is why in John 1:1 it says, "In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God." The Greek word is the word logos, which is the word that the Greeks would use to talk about God's wisdom. And what it's trying to show is wisdom is at the very beginning. And this is what Solomon points out. It's always here. But pseudo-religious groups want to use this scripture to say that God created wisdom at a particular time, which is foolish, because that would mean there was a time when God wasn't wise. The fact that you agree that Jesus is the wisdom of God must mean you have to agree he's always with God. Because when has wisdom ever been not with God? So this passage is not trying to teach against the doctrine of the Trinity or against the divinity of Christ. It's making a point that since wisdom has always existed, and it is before creation, it's at the beginning, then man is without excuse by not having wisdom, because it's always there for you.